Good morning. So, first of all, I'd like to make an announcement here that the Honorable Lavette Fuller will not be able to make it today. But on behalf of Centenary College and the Centenary College Diversity Committee, I'd like to thank you and welcome you here today. I would like to share something that I observed this past week. It started at the funeral of Shreveport police officer Shateri Payne. That was last Saturday, and I had the honor to be there and show my support for the family. But also there was law enforcement from all over. There were uniforms that I'd never seen before. The outpouring of support was just overwhelming to see the brotherhood of law enforcement from the local, state, and federal levels. But inside of each of those uniforms were individuals. Those individuals were diverse. I mean, we wear similar uniforms, but we were all different individuals. But we came together to show support for this family. And there was also unity in the community, not just law enforcement, but there was community there to support this family in need. So the brotherhood of law enforcement is diverse, and our community is diverse. But we all came together for a common cause to show support for this family that was in need. 2 days later, we have the MLK Service Day. Show of hands for who all participated in our service day. That's awesome. So here we are, Centenary College, a diverse community coming together for one cause, and that's to help our neighbors in need. The needs were different. Saturday, the Payne family was in need of emotional support, and we were there for that. Our community was more of a physical needs, and we were there to support them in that. Sometimes you see the support and you see the results of one, but you don't see it in the other. But you could see the results of y'all's hard work Monday. And like my friend Monica Powell stated Wednesday, there's strength in unity, and there's strength in numbers. And we can do a lot when we come together as a team, but don't underestimate the power of one. You can make a difference in someone's life. Each one of us sitting in this room right now have the power to make a difference. So don't wait for a tragedy to step up, and don't wait till Service Day 2020 to help somebody in need, to get out in your community. Hebrews 13:2 says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by this some have entertained angels without knowing it." So, welcome. Excited to hear what my brother Dr. Lavan has to say. Go ladies, go gents. Right now, Timothy McCoy, 2018 grad, is fixing to entertain us. Everybody give it up for Mr. Timothy McCoy.
Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm
was really beautiful, so thank you. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Is this on? Yeah. This week is all about celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I've actually seen a lot of posts on social media or Facebook as people will share some of his iconic quotes. For example, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Or, the time is always right to do what is right. And I think these statements are wise and powerful, and sharing them with the world is a testament to Dr. King's legacy and his efforts to end racial and socioeconomic injustices. But I think to truly honor and respect Dr. King's legacy, we can't just share some of his iconic quotes. If we truly wish to honor Dr. King, it takes effort. We must consciously engage with topics that make us uncomfortable, especially concerning race and oppression. We must commit ourselves to recognizing the history of the racial justice movement, but also that Dr. King's work is still not done. And we must actively work to dismantle barriers to justice wherever we must find them. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I speak on behalf of the student body when I say that this is precisely what Centenary's MLK Junior Dream Week is about, and why events like this Alumni Convocation are so important to the Centenary community. Thank you all for coming.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Andre Nasi. I'm a senior biology student here at Centenary, and I'll be introducing Dr. Chris Lavan. Dr. Lavan has many accolades, but most notably, he began his formal education right here at Centenary. He obtained his bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in English, 2006, and after that, he went on to further his education at LSU, where he pursued his master's degree focused in public administration with a concentration in higher education. I first formally met Dr. Lavan my freshman year on the Centenary trip to Paris. He made his presence known early amongst us students. If there was any time where all of us were gathered together, you could suspect to hear Dr. Lavan's resounding voice either giving us the daily agenda or trying to ease the excitement of 100 college students abroad in a foreign country. But it wasn't the pitch of Dr. Lavan's voice or the tone that struck me. It was the wisdom that he spoke. Dr. Lavan instructed me very dearly to listen to my peers, but most importantly, look out for who I was involved with. It may seem like a simple instruction, but that really resounded with me. Ooh. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Yes, that really resounded with me, and I don't know how to thank Dr. Lavan for everything he's done for me. We kept in contact after he had left Centenary, his tenure at Centenary, and continued to Tennessee. He encouraged me to keep up with him, follow him, and I seeked his guidance throughout. So if you'd please allow me to ask you to welcome Dr. Chris Lavan.
Good morning, everybody. This guy sitting on this front row, I'm going to sing my song and I'm going to get out of the way, but this guy sitting on the front row was and is one of the most powerful people I know for a fact. So I'm going to do this song. And the song is called Soon I Will Be Done with the Troubles of the World. It dates back to about 1920, 30. And it embodies not only the song of the slave, but the song that we're still singing today, which is liberty and freedom. And so I think if we understand that, I think we got it down pat, huh? Okay, so I'm gonna sing this and get out of the way. Soon I will be done.
I will be done with the troubles of the world. I'm going home to live with God. No more weeping and wailing. Oh, no more weeping and wailing. Yeah. No, weeping and wailing. I'm going home to live with God, with God.
Good morning. It's good to be back at Centenary College of Louisiana. Chief, thank you. Amir, you're in an important position on this campus. Yes. Don't take that for granted. Andre, I love you. I'm so proud of you. I remember that day. Dean Mark Miller sat next to me. And I'm just so grateful you listened. Tim, I consider the last young man that I was able to fully mentor, fully in terms of the physical sense here. And God has given you a precious gift. I'm so glad to see you this morning. For you to make time to be here means a lot to me. But let me stick to the script. First, I want to thank the Lord, my Savior Jesus Christ, for this opportunity. He is my rock, my joy, and my foundation. I stand where I stand because of his grace over and in my life. Second, I want to thank President Holloman. I just met him this morning, but for months I've heard positive things about your leadership, and I'm so grateful you're here now. Provost Ward, the same. I worked under her, not directly, but side by side at times during my time at Centenary, and I have a lot of admiration for her as well. And the other members of your cabinet, Dr. Holloman, I think of Vice President Blue and others, who provide leadership to this great and historical institution of higher education. Third, I want to recognize the college's diversity committee, its chair this year, Professor Don Hooper, and the other members that serve on this year's committee. I also want to thank Reverend Kalen Walker. I did say Reverend, that's how I know him. He is a dear friend, he's a spiritual mentor of mine, and he and I have known each other for several years. I would also like to recognize some special faculty members who taught me when I was a student here at Centenary from August 2002 until May 2006. Dr. Steve Shelburne was my minor advisor in English. Dr. David Stafford, who has long since left Centenary, was my major advisor in psychology, along with Dr. Matt Weeks, who was a faculty member in psychology when I was a student too. I want to recognize my friend, bear with me. He's taught me a lot outside of the classroom. He's mentored me, but he opened his home to me in ways that I don't have enough time to explain to you all today. But my dear, dear friend, Mr. Scott Cheerhart, what many don't know is that he and his wife opened their home to me on more than one occasion. I lived with them. for various stints. Years before he had his son and daughter now. I jokingly think that I was practice for them before God blessed them with Samantha and Kyle. I also want to recognize Dr. Harold Christensen, who I know recently retired, I believe, or his wife just did, excuse me, but both he and Dr. Cheerhart served as consecutive SGA faculty advisors when I was a student. You see, I was fortunate enough to be Centenary's first African-American student body president during the 2005-2006 academic year. Both of them provided great leadership and guidance to me and my peers during that time. I also want to thank Mr. Author, who's been a longtime member, of the college's janitorial staff. He's been a friend to me for over a decade. I want to recognize Ms. Sharon Savalier and the college's library for many hours of conversation, guidance, and prayer with me and for me and over me over the years. Thank you to Reverend Betsy Eves, who serves as the college's chaplain. She did when I was a student and later as one of my supervisors during her stint as Vice President of Student Development when I was on staff. I'll never forget how at the end of every one-on-one with Betsy, she took the time to pray for me and over me and my wife, long before Jessica and I were married. I also want to recognize Mrs. Tina Felt, who I affectionately call Mama T. Both her and her husband Parker, who I respectfully call Dad, have been a caring couple and another pseudo-family to me and my wife in practical and wise ways over the years. I want to simply thank and mention Dr. Ken Schwab. He was the college's president when I was a student. I was inspired to pursue a career in higher education, largely due to Dr. Schwab and my relationship with him back in those days. I feel the need to mention Dr. David Rowe, and this one thing about Dr. Rowe is that he pushed me. He didn't let me sit back on my laurels. He believed in me, and he constantly stoked a fire in me to pursue a doctorate degree. He would send me pamphlets and campus mail. When it came time for me to apply to graduate programs too, he followed it up with a letter of recommendation. I also won't forget Dr. Karen Soul, who also wrote me a letter of recommendation, and I'm grateful for her encouragement over the years. Dr. Ward did the same at another point for me as well. And there are many others, and I'll be brief, but the hours I spent with Dr. Dana Kress in his office, the guidance and wisdom of Dr. David Hoas, the golf tutoring and friendship of Coach Emmeline Aubrey, as well as Chief Eddie Walker, and the not golf tutoring, but good company on the golf course by Montgomery Mewers. The encouraging conversations and teachings of Dr. Michelle Wolkamere, Dr. Jeannie Hamming, Dr. David Havard, Dr. Earl Labor. My favorite course at Centenary was about the Holocaust, taught by Dr. Lisa Nicoletti, as well as the philosophical conversations and reciprocal respect I share with Dr. Ed Reagan and Dr. Chad Fullwilder. Dr. Melva Williams was a wonderful influence on me. She inspired me, and I followed in her footsteps to go to Jackson State to pursue my doctorate. During my time here, she was a staff member, and she had a huge influence on me for more reasons than that. And I spent countless hours working with and learning from Dean Mark Miller, both in his office and in Paris. But for now, I need to press on. On a personal note, are there any members of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity here? Thank you. There are a number of them who have texted me since they heard my plane touchdown yesterday here in Shreveport. And I just want to thank you and thank them because I left here with another education. When I graduated, I left an Alpha man. And I'm grateful to each of them for what they've done for me over the years. We started an Alpha Phi Alpha chapter here when I was a student. I also need to recognize my mother who's here today, Miss Betty Sims. My mother drove in from Lake Charles. I'm standing here today in large part due to your prayers. Did we know this day would come? No. Her prayers, her guidance, her constant investment in me. When I left home to come to Centenary as a freshman or first-year student, my mother said to me, "We don't go to college just to go, we go to college to graduate." If I had $1 for every time I heard that phrase when I'd go home and come back here, Jess and I would have a Mercedes-Benz in our garage. We have a Honda and a Toyota, and we love them, but they're not Mercedes-Benz. And there are many others of you sitting in the audience I've done countless hours of work with on the TREC committee. I see Amy Hammond here and other faculty members too, but I need to get to my message. Before I do, I must mention my love of my life, my wife, Jessica. Her prayers, her patience, and her love are the fuel that gets me through many days. I was talking to her on my drive to campus this morning, and her support sustains me. She couldn't be here today due to some work obligations back in Knoxville, but she sends her best. With that said, the title of my talk today is The Price is High. The Price is High. In John Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, you know that book, Tim. I bought you a copy. Chapter 18 is entitled The Law of Sacrifice. The subtitle reads, A Leader Must Give Up to Go Up. The basic premise of this chapter is that in order to move forward, in order to make progress in life, in order to make your dreams a reality, students, there is a price you have to pay. Many times this price is unspoken. In other words, you can't always see it, but know, students, that it's always there. Do not ever allow yourself to think that anything in life is free. In fact, nothing worth having in life is free, except, Tina and I talked about it yesterday, except the fact that everything costs something. Also, do not allow yourself to think that money is the only currency needed to make your dreams come true. In fact, in many cases, money is the least valuable currency needed. What I have learned and am still learning in my life is that the true cost of dreams, the true and real cost to make dreams, thoughts, and handwritten computer, tablet, or iPhone-typed goals a reality are the things that money cannot buy. After having lost a number of people in my life to death, such as my father at 16 to a massive and unexpected heart attack, my grandfather in 2009 to cancer, a high school classmate when we were still in high school in his sleep, and a fraternity brother, Chad Lamar Macalis, here while still a student at Centenary. What I've learned from those situations is that money is important. But are you willing to give up and pay in currencies, such as your time, which none of us will ever get back once it's gone? Emotional heartache and pain, which many times can be more deadly over the long run than breaking a bone physically or dealing with other hard and challenging health concerns, or even pay the price to achieve and sustain the mental fortitude and stamina to press forward when no one else believes in you, and many call you names and desert you, when you know that what you are saying or trying to do is right and good. This is the price that I believe Dr. King knew very well. And he paid it in ways that we know about and in ways that we still have yet to imagine. This is the currency of having to leave loved ones behind and family members behind in order to pursue your greater goals and dreams. The price of not being called popular or even being alone to pursue your purpose and stoke your passions, to give yourself a chance, just a chance to make your dreams happen and make them a reality. These are the unspoken costs of purpose, such as leaving the familiar behind, that drove the ones we still talk about today, long after they are gone, to do things that they could not have done on their own. I believe God was working through them to empower them to persevere in ways they didn't even know they could do at the time. The things that they pursued were bigger than them. They were unselfish, they were focused on others, and they allowed the suffering of hate and bigotry around them to fuel their pursuit of justice and love. Having shared this, I want to tell you all 3 stories today. 3 stories, that's it, they're short, and after that I'll be done and I'll take my seat. The first story I call From D to Degree. From D to Degree. I have a feeling someone needs to hear these 3 things. Someone just needs to, and so I just have to say them. But during my first semester as a freshman at Centenary, I was a biology major. Notice how I said was. That quickly changed. After lots of work, studying, and dedication, I still did not do well in Biology 101. In fact, I made the only bad grade I have made in 22 and a half years of school. I made my first D, and I was crushed. It was tough, but I returned to school for my spring semester more determined than ever. I also switched majors. That was the spring of 2003. As you can imagine, my GPA wasn't very good after that first semester, but by the end of my 4 years, I had brought my cumulative GPA up to a 3.0. I was eligible to apply for most graduate schools, and I was able to finish and graduate on time with a Bachelor of Arts degree as planned. If I had not held on to my faith, I would not have made it through. Remember, students, it is not always about how you start the race, but more importantly, it's how you finish the race. It's about how you persevere. My second story relates directly to the chapter of John Maxwell's book that I mentioned a few minutes ago. I call it Give Up to Go Up. Give Up to Go Up. What many people don't know is that the doctorate I earned was through an accelerated program, not a traditional one. It was an on-campus program, not online, so it was traditional in that sense in terms of geographic location, but it was essentially created for working professionals. The program was intense, but if done correctly and on time, it could yield a doctorate degree in 2 years. By comparison, the average doctorate degree in the social sciences can take someone roughly 5 years to complete. I'm thankful to say that this degree took me 2.5 to finish. Now, what made the program accelerated was that my classmates and I had to complete our initial drafts of the review of the literature in our research areas as part of our application to be admitted into the program. Instead of later in the program, after we completed all of our classes, as is done in a more traditional program. We also had to continue our research on our current chosen dissertation topics while taking a full course load and working full-time. These were the initial years of Centenary in Paris here at the college. So it required me to take books with me to Paris for both trips. If you remember in the first year, we did a faculty exploratory trip, Mark, in May, you and I and Dana and a few others. And then we took all the students to Paris later in August. So I had books on the plane, I had books in my room, I carried books with me practically everywhere I went. When we returned, I carried books with me for trips home on the holidays. My mother remembers me reading in the room by myself. During the summer, I had books with me, and anywhere else where time for reading could be carved out each day. After our first year in the program, me and my classmates were scheduled to take comprehensive exams. Comps, as we called them, they were an 8-hour essay examination, 8 hours long, covering everything we learned to that point in the program based off the graduate courses we had already completed. We also had to turn in a completed draft of the first 3 chapters of our dissertations. Now, how do you think I did all that? Students, sometimes if you want it bad enough, you have to give up something in order to go up or move up to where you want to be. I named the summer leading up to my comprehensive examination the summer of sacrifice. My motto at that time was the sacrifices of my 20s will pay off in my 30s. In fact, I often repeated that to myself in the 2910 building where my office was, and especially during my drives to and from Jackson, Mississippi each month. I recorded all of my class notes on my phone, and practically every morning that summer, I ran outside or went to the gym and listened to my notes. I also listened to my notes as I drove to and from work in my car. Then when I was at work, and Mark only on my lunch break, I studied there as well. Also, after driving to Jackson, Mississippi from Shreveport, Louisiana 26 times for 2.5 years, at 3.5 hours each way, plus gas money and tuition each semester, as well as invaluable time away from my newlywed wife, our home, and other things I valued. I paid the price. Out of my 25 classmates, only 8 of us graduated on time that December in 2014, which is the first time that any of us were eligible to graduate. And I say clearly and strongly, glory to God, that I was one of them. He made that happen. Sometimes you have to do what you might not want to do in order to be where only a few can be. Sometimes you have to do what you might not want to do in order to be where only a few can be. Not everyone is willing to pay the price. However, when an opportunity presents itself, let the other stuff go and focus on what's in front of you. In Luke chapter 9, verses 57 through 62, it says, "As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, 'I will follow you wherever you go.' Jesus replied, 'Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head.' He said to another man, 'Follow me.' But he replied, 'Lord, first let me go bury my father.' Jesus said to him, 'Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God.' Still another said, 'I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family.' Jesus said, 'No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God.' And I tell you all my story, and that story from the Bible too, because pursuing your dreams will be uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable. In most cases, to make your dreams a reality, you will have to leave behind what you are familiar with. Sometimes walk the path alone and persevere in ways you never imagined. How comfortable was it for Dr. King to receive death threats? How comfortable was it for him to leave his wife at home with their children alone to go help another community where they don't even live, that is struggling with human relations issues, that he may never see the change of his presence from? He may never see it come about due to his presence and his time there, yet he went anyway. I believe that we are called to go too. You never know when becoming a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a professor, a faculty member, or whatever it is that you want to do throughout your many stages of life. You never know when it will come back to save someone else's life. I didn't say change someone else's life. I said save it. My last story is called Emotional Costs. Emotional costs. Just this past Thanksgiving in 2018, just a couple months ago, members of my wife's family came to visit us and stay with us for the week of Thanksgiving. We hosted 5 family members for 4 days, and then her parents came and met us about halfway through the week up in Tennessee. We had a blast. Of those 7 family members, 3 were little kids. 1 was 4, the middle was 7, the oldest was 9. My mother told me that after they left, I would miss the sounds of their little feet running up and down our stairs, the football against the wall. I'll leave that alone. At the time when she told me, I honestly said to myself, internally of course, "No, I won't, Mom. Nah, I won't miss it." However, it only took a couple weeks, and yes, I did. My mom was right. You see, after hosting family for a week, and many of you know this, it can make you tired just a little bit. Not tired of having them, we love them, but it's a lot of energy. So I was mentally drained and wanted some fun. So I called up a friend in town, and we decided to go play a round of golf. The weather that day was great. It was chilly, but not too cold. We had a great time laughing, joking, and playing some, I'll say, decent golf. However, on our way, walking up to the tee box on the 18th hole, the last hole of the day, I noticed something. You see, the 18th hole at this course runs parallel to the 10th hole. Then on the other side of the 10th hole is a small trailer park. A chain-link fence separates the trailer park from the golf course. In the distance, I could see 2 young teenage boys. On the other side of that fence, one had a basketball in his hand, and honestly didn't think anything of it at the time. As we prepared to hit our tee shots, my friend was up first. As he prepared to tee off, out of nowhere and unexpectedly, I heard a word said loudly that I never thought I would hear at that time. The word that was said loudly was the word nigger. I immediately stopped what I was doing and stood still. I didn't turn towards them and thought to myself, did I really just hear that word right now? I said to myself, no, I'm going to leave it alone. I won't worry about what I think I just heard. Well, not even 30 seconds later, I hear that same word again, but even louder. I then decided to look around. I said to myself, who are they talking to? Surely they aren't screaming that way over here at me. However, when I looked around, and admittedly it was late afternoon at this point, no one was around. And my friend that I was playing with at the time was white. At that point, I realized something. They were trying to talk to me, but I didn't do anything. Finally, it was my turn to tee up. As I put my ball on the tee and backed up to prepare to swing, I heard that word a third time, and I got mad. Someone needed to hear this today, Mom. That third time I got mad. However, and this is key, I took that negative energy and I did two things with it. Emily and Aubrey, Eddie, y'all would be proud. I did two things with that energy. The first thing I did was channel that energy into my golf swing, and I hit the prettiest 4-iron off that tee you ever did see. I then found my ball in the fairway, not in the woods, Eddie, in the fairway, and I hit a 5-iron just as sweet. The second thing I did when I got to my car a few minutes later after we finished the round that we just played is I prayed. I prayed, yes, I prayed. I prayed for those two young men because someone taught them that. Someone taught them to do that. And they didn't know what that word meant or the historical implications of that word. I then asked God to forgive them and that He would touch them, bless them, and give them what they were lacking in life. You see, back in November 6, 1956, Dr. King gave a sermon at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. Students, if you don't hear one thing that I've said today, listen to this. In that sermon, he said, let no man pull you so low as to hate him. Let no man pull you so low as to hate him. I tell you this story today because it is time that we in this country stop hating one another for what we see and start loving people for who we are. It is time for us to see the similarities in one another. It is time for us to see the need and share in the supply that God has given each of us. 1 John, the 3rd chapter, verses 16 through 18, it says, we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. If someone has enough money to live well and see a brother or sees a brother and sister in need, but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Dear children, let's not merely say we love each other. Let's show the truth by our actions. As we continue into 2019, I think that's our call to action. I think our challenge to ourselves each day is self. How can I show someone, just one person, love today? Can I spare 5 minutes to listen to someone who is frustrated, just one person who might be down on themselves or upset? Can I listen? Can I take 5 minutes to write them a kind note or email? How can I encourage someone? Can I spare $5 to help someone have a good lunch who forgot their money or frankly doesn't have any money in the first place? If I have 3 hats and it's cold outside and I see someone on the corner who is homeless or just doesn't have something over their head, can I stop and have the courage to give them one of my hats so that they won't get sick standing in the cold all night? These are the little things, yet the important things that we can do to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Lastly, and I'll close. How are you defining success in your life? How are you defining success in your life? Is success checking all the boxes in a day? Trust me, I've been a cereal box checker for a long time. I say have been because lately I've learned, and I'm still learning, life isn't about checking all the boxes. Checking boxes only get you so far. No. What I'm learning is that life is about obedience to God, loving others, and walking in faith. All of us in this room are special. We each have been equipped with specific gifts, skills, and talents. How are you using your gifts, skills, and talents to positively impact the lives of others each day? And finally, from his sermon called The Drum Major Instinct, given on February 4th, 1968. I used to teach about this in that CO 153 class, the last sermon he gave from his home pulpit before his assassination. Dr. King said this: everyone can be great because anyone can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. Don't tell Dr. Cotton Kelly or Dr. Pocrell I said this part, but it also said, I'm just quoting Dr. King, you don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. Now, students, for your physics exam, you may have to know that, so don't tell them Dr. Lavan said you didn't have to know that. But he ends it and he says, you only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. Thank you.
My name is Chris Brown. I manage the archives here at Centenary College. I'm also a member of Centenary's Diversity Committee. A few people I'd like to thank this afternoon, members of the Diversity Committee who have helped plan this event and every event this week. Thank you very much for your assistance. I would also like to thank Centenary's Maroon Jackets who served as ushers for us. For our special guests, I'd like to acknowledge any elected officials and local representatives we may have with us in attendance. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Lavan's mother for joining us today in Shreveport. There's still a few upcoming Dream Week events, just to list them for you. We have this evening at 6:15 p.m. in Kilpatrick Auditorium, a conversation on servant leadership and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that's being facilitated by Don Horton. Tomorrow, Friday, we have a Civil Rights Spotlight from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Bynum Commons Cafeteria, African American Women and the Civil Rights Movement. That's a collaboration with Centenary's National Organization of Women and Black Student Union. And on Saturday, the 8th Annual MLK Oratory Competition and Youth Leadership Awards Ceremony takes place in Mickle, room 114 at 1 p.m. For those interested in continuing this conversation, you're welcome to get some lunch and join us in the cafeteria in the side meeting room, the Centenary room. And now I'd like to invite Centenary's President Holloman up to offer some closing remarks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Obviously, being named Chris is an advantage here as we glance down the program. We've been to church today, haven't we, brothers and sisters? One of my favorite gospel songs, Tim, I don't know if you know it, but if so, get ready, because it's one of my favorites. Get right, church, and let's go home. So let's get, I realize I'm mindful of standing between you of the going home part going on to your next, but I do have a few things to say. First, Chris, thanks for being here. We need you around more often, if for no other reason that you'll help me legitimate tearing up at the podium, because I do it too. And I have to say, I freely acknowledge we are not a colorblind society in any way, shape, or form, and we need to live into those differences. And I suspect this says more about me than anybody else. But until I saw the draft, I've been hearing about Chris Lavan since before I came to Centenary. When I was interviewing, here as a presidential finalist, I was already hearing about Chris Lavan. But until I saw the draft of this program, I can't remember if it was Tuesday or this morning, I didn't know you were an African American. So I think that says something about the way we talk about each other and our accomplishments. And we are so proud to claim you as an alum and a former staff member. And this has been a great day. I am honored to be the 31st president of a college that has a long history, a history that has its dark moments, but we acknowledge those and we move forward, and we are leaders in conversations about how we do move forward. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, but we don't always notice or understand who the giants among us are, because they're not always the presidents. I stand on the shoulders, I frequently joke I stand on the shoulders of my predecessors who are in fact a lot shorter than I am, but they lift me up. I stand on the shoulders of Chris Lavan. Who are you a giant for? Martin Luther King stood on the shoulders of giants. We stand on his shoulders, but he too learned. Some of those were giants whose names we know now. Rosa Parks, but not then. Some of them we know as giants in their own right. Indira Gandhi, her uncle, Mohandas Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi, who modeled the nonviolence that Dr. King practiced so well. And I don't know if you're aware of the movie. I used to teach politics in the movies, and I showed the movie Gandhi, and one of the last scenes is so heartbreaking because, as you know, Gandhi spent his whole life preaching nonviolence and working to bring about an independent India. And in the movie, the Day of Independence, and we see the joyous celebrations of independent India with a spinning wheel, his own symbol in the middle of the flag. We also see the independence of Pakistan, and we see Mohandas Gandhi, the Mahatma, sitting in his ashram spinning, unable to celebrate because he was not able to overcome that fundamental divide of Hindu and Pakistani to bring about his dream. As Chris said, we are in the midst of processes. Our work won't be done in our lifetimes. But we need to continue to reach out, and to echo his remarks. Friends, the most important thing I think we have to do right now, and again, I'm honored that Centenary takes a role in this, is to speak across these great divides. divides that may seem so insurmountable, like the Hindu-Pakistani divide, broke apart the great nation of India before it could begin. But it can be overcome. All divides can be overcome. We feel like this is a terrible time in our country, and in many respects it is. The division seems so great. We saw an episode this weekend where people on both sides were led to confrontation because they didn't have all the facts, and they chose not to have all the facts before they reacted. We have to do better than that. Whether it's the divisions between the races, whether it's the divisions in our beloved United Methodist Church for many of us, whether it's the divisions in our cities and towns, we can be the leader. One of the best things about higher education is it teaches us to speak across the divides. Amir mentioned this as well. I am honored, again, to be a part of this community. I do stand on the shoulders of giants, sometimes giants that are toiling away in their individual office as a one-man shop as a director. They toil away in your classroom as a student. They toil away in their faculty offices. You can be a giant. Someday another president will be standing here, and he will or she will say, I'm standing on the shoulder of a student body president who made a change to this institution. Someday in your church, your minister will say, I'm standing on the shoulder of a lay leader who ushered my church into a new understanding of what it meant to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly. Who are you going to be a giant for? Thank you to Kaylin Walker. Kaylin, this has been an amazing week. We've had enough We've had enough outstanding programming this week to last a year, but it's been wonderfully concentrated here. Thanks to this great turnout, faculty, staff, students. I think it's a tribute, again, to Dr. Lavan and his legacy here. And again, we never know what trails we will leave through life. So as we get right, church, let's go home and leave a good path. Thanks, everybody.